My son didn't even look me in the eyes when he said it. "Get out of here, you burden." Those were the last words I heard in the house I helped build with my own hands. My name is Grandpa Ned, and at 72, I thought I understood pain. I'd buried my wife of 48 years, survived a factory explosion that took 2 fingers, and watched my body slowly betray me with age. But nothing prepared me for the moment my own son pointed at the door like I was a stray dog that had wandered in by mistake. It was raining that afternoon, cold, soaking rain that crept into your bones. I stood there holding a small suitcase, the one my late wife, Martha, had stitched a patch onto years ago. My son, Calvin, crossed his arms while his wife stood behind him, lips pressed thin with satisfaction. "You've overstayed your welcome," Calvin said. "We need space, and honestly, you're just a burden now." I wanted to remind him of the nights I worked double shifts so he could go to college, of the shoes I went without so his feet stayed warm, of the house payments I made long after my back gave out, but the words lodged in my throat. Pride can be a curse when you're old. So I nodded, stepped into the rain, and shut the door behind me. That night I slept on a bench at the bus station. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, and the smell of oil and wet concrete filled the air. I clutched Martha's old scarf and whispered, "You always said kindness would come back around." I hoped she was right. What Calvin didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I hadn't told my eldest daughter, Elena, anything. Elena lived 3 towns away. She was the kind of woman who listened before she spoke and remembered everything. When her mother passed, she handled the funeral arrangements while holding my hand the whole time. Strong, steady, fiercely loyal. I didn't want to worry her. I told myself I'd figure something out, maybe a shelter, maybe a cheap room. But fate had other plans. 2 days later, Elena called Calvin to check in. He mentioned, casually, that I'd moved out. That word didn't sit right with her. "Moved out?" she asked. "Dad doesn't move anywhere without telling me." There was a pause, a long one. Then Calvin sighed. Look, he was becoming difficult, always tired, always needing things. We had to think about our own family. Elena didn't yell. That came later. First she hung up. She drove straight to Calvin's house. Neighbors said they heard her voice before they saw her car. "You threw him out," she demanded, standing in the doorway. "He's an adult," Calvin said defensively. "He'll manage." That's when Elena lost her calm. "He's not a burden," she said. "He's our father, and if you do know where he is right now, you'd better pray I find him before something happens." She searched everywhere, hospitals, shelters, churches. She found me at the bus station, asleep on that same bench, my suitcase under my arm. "Dad," she whispered, shaking me gently. When I opened my eyes and saw her, I broke. 72 years of holding it together crumbled in an instant. I cried into her shoulder like a child. "I didn't want to bother you," I said. She pulled back and looked me straight in the eye. "You could never be a bother to me." Elena took me home with her that day, not as a guest, as family. She gave me the spare bedroom, painted it the same soft blue Martha used to love. She cooked my favorite meals. She set up my medications neatly, never once making me feel like a chore. But she didn't stop there. A week later, Calvin received a letter. Inside was a copy of the house deed. The house he lived in, the one he thought was his, was still in my name. I had never transferred it. I planned to someday, but someday never came. Elena had helped me update my will, properly, legally. Calvin stormed into Elena's house, furious. "You're turning him against me," he shouted. Elena stood firm. "No, Calvin, you did that yourself." She continued, calm but unyielding. "Dad will be selling the house. You have 60 days to move." "You can't be serious," Calvin scoffed. "I'm very serious," she said. "You threw him out like trash. Now you'll learn what consequences feel like." The house sold quickly. The money was more than I ever imagined. Elena insisted I use it for myself. So I did something I never thought I would. I moved into a small, sunny retirement community near Elena's home. I planted tomatoes. I joined a chess club. I even laughed again, real laughter, the kind that surprises you. As for Calvin, he called once, apologized, said he was under stress, asked if we could start over. I told him the truth. I forgive you, I said, but forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. The line went quiet. Today I sit on my porch every morning with a cup of coffee, watching the sun rise. Elena visits often, sometimes with her kids, sometimes just to talk. I'm not a burden. I'm a father, a grandfather, a man who gave his life to his family and finally learned which love was real. And if Martha can see me now, I think she'd smile and say, "See, Ned, kindness always comes back around."